Well, Jack, here I am again, at your kind invitation, back in the old billiard room. It's 3 years to the day, strangely enough, that we were sitting here and we started to make your super tape, Billiards at Home with JK.
You know, saying that, firstly, I couldn't believe it when you said 3 years, because well, it just doesn't seem possible. And what is more, tremendous coincidence. I mean, this was totally, you know, suddenly happened, felt like doing it, and it is to the very, very day.
Yeah.
It's quite unbelievable,
Yes,
isn't it?
yes. When it's
So,
not
I mean, that's nothing that's been planned at all. So, I think there might be a message there.
Well, I hope so, because we're going to do some more work on the game.
Yep, yep. Well, let's hope it goes well.
I didn't think that when we made the last one, I mean, and I know you won't mind me saying, but you're coming up to your 80th birthday now.
Yes.
I mean, I can't believe it, and I'm sure all the other people that know you can't. Your enthusiasm and fortunately wonderful health, I mean, you just continue to play. And I suppose in a way, I mean, obviously everybody's limited by talent, but I mean, you were given a lot of it, but is there anybody really who's ever had the time to spend on the game and the health to allow them to go on for as long as you have?
I don't know. I suppose I can truthfully say in my time, I mean, I knew Joe, I knew Willie Smith, I knew Walter Lindrum, Horace Lindrum, Tom Newman, of course, who was my mentor.
Yes.
I mean, they were players, particularly until Horace came, who was perhaps deeper into snooker than billiards, but a very, very good, 1,000 break player, mind you. But the others they were such wonderful billiard players. I mean, and it's a great pity that they didn't have the facilities in those days to do what we're doing now, because their skills were such that I doubt if we will ever achieve the sort of things they did. Not entirely because people haven't got the skills. They've got a degree of skills, but they haven't got the need for it. There's so much more entertainment in the world today. I mean, in those days, to go to Thurston's or one of the big halls where they were playing money matches although they were matches, it was a form of entertainment.
Yes.
But particularly billiards.
Yes.
I can remember coming out of one hall and Walter Lindrum had been playing, I think it was Tom, and Tom was quite a long way behind, and I came out, and of course agreed Tom, who lived very close to us, almost next door to one another, and I turned to my father, and I was only a young lad, around about, I don't know, 9, 10 years of age, and I said, "Isn't he a wonderful player?" And this was Tom. And Tom was about 4,000 behind.
Yeah.
Now you see, so there was no thought of
who's
going to win.
No.
And you sit back and you admire the wonderful shots and the wonderful play. But of course today, it's all about competitiveness.
Yeah.
And you know, it isn't always the best players that win, which is a sad thing to say, but it's a fact.
Yes, they had longer, of course, to play, didn't they? They had week and 2-week matches, and they had time to develop the skill and show the skill. But now I think that you want to do something else with regard to putting another tape together, which I thought the last one would be the one, but amazingly you're going to do another one, and I hope that's not going to be the last now, because you've had an enormous response to Billiards at Home from around the world, haven't you?
Yes, surprisingly, yeah, I'm very surprised. I mean, I haven't pushed with the thing. I did it purely of love of the game, and you know, if it's going to help somebody on the way, so be it. But the response has been quite remarkable. I never thought I'd be replying to Australia, New Zealand, Africa, all over the place. I mean, all over Europe.
It's marvellous.
It is. It's very nice, and the pattern of the response has been the same. It's what a lovely game, what a wonderful game. You know, this is what is a bit sickening, actually. It's a wonderful game, but
people don't see it.
And they don't get a chance to see it. Well, you know, there are lots of things one could say about that, but perhaps the less said the better.
But a lot of the letters you've shown me, and I think you've talked to a lot of these people that phone you to send a tape, and you put little personal messages on the tape.
Right.
But after they've seen them, there seems, probably from the better players, this great interest in top of the table, which we did a considerable amount of, but you feel there's much more detail to go into with this tape, and it's really the top of the table play that you want to really get into, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you know, there are lots of things I would like to say, but, you know, I don't want to be seen to be setting myself up. But I must say that I've had people come to see me and we talked about the game. I've had very nice letters and things. And, you know, the pattern is generally the same, not only from sort of mediocre, run-of-the-mill club players who play quite a pleasant game, but from very good players indeed. And they all say the same thing. Well, you know, how do you do it? You know, it looks so, and it does look easy. It looks easy when you see it.
Yes.
And yet,
like anything really done at a very high level, it makes it.
But
easy.
suddenly, you set the balls up for them, and within a minute or 10 shots, or they've lost the run of the balls, and they really don't know. And when you're watching, it's very easy for me to say, and I do say occasionally, well, you know, you're not playing it the correct way. Now, when we say the correct way, it's not that you're half an inch out. I suppose if you're au fait with measurements, you'd be talking, well, you're 2 or 3 thou out there.
For perfection.
In terms of finding
easy.
the line,
yes.
you know. And this is why you see this bit of tape on the table here. You know, I was taught the game by Tom Newman, who was a wonderful player. And his theory was that you never played, you didn't play the shot. He used to shock you and say, well, what are you going to play? You say, well, I'm going to go in off that ball. I say, well, why going off? Well, you say, well, the ball, you've got to hit that ball there, and it goes off there into the... He said, yes, sir, you're thinking about going there and going there, thinking about the pocket, the ball, the cue, and everything. He said, don't do that. Just, do you see the line from the cue to the object ball? You say, yes, from there to there. He said, well, play that. If you get that right, the rest happens. So, instead of playing the shot, you play the line.
Which kept the pressure on.
That's right, exactly. Not only that, you could tend to concentrate on your cue delivery, just looking at the object ball, and let the rest happen. Yes. Now, where the cue ball goes will tell you exactly, if you understand, what you've done wrong. So and this is Tom talking, not me. The balls will tell you what you've done wrong. Now, you know, you'll find most players who struggle at the top of the table, you get the person who feels good for 20, 30 points and thinks, well, you know, why can't I make 130 or whatever?
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, well, and the reason is that you have to play the shots that appear to be easy. You have to play them in a different fashion. You have to know exactly to separate the line that appears to be correct and play it with side of whatever nature, which alters the line. So therefore you're playing a different line from the line that...
Making all these little allowances.
That's right. Yeah. And, it's far easier to demonstrate it and show rather than talk about it. Talking is easy. This is why when you get to this stage, this is where you find the men from the boys.
Yes.
You know, talk's cheap, that when you're there, you've got to show it and prove it. Because if you're talking to a very good player and you say, well look, you shouldn't have broken down there because you played the shot. You played the right sort of shot, but you played it incorrectly.
Yes, and this really is where, I mean, you've often said to me that you don't have to be a champion to be a good coach, but you have to be a champion to be a top coach.
Yeah.
At the sort of level that we're going to be talking about now. Yes.
I mean, you're a golfer. I mean, I could say you are a very good golfer. Now, I mean, I have spoken to a top professional golfer, and when you talk to them and they begin to say, well, now get that finger down there and just press on the thumb there, just turn that wrist just a little bit more, you know, you begin to think, oh, come on, you know. But this is what this is all about.
Yes.
It's how you hold the butt, how you lengthen the amount of cue over the butt, how there's more push and pull rather than pull and push, you know. And this is all building up to working you into a state of mind that gives you perfect coordination, because you're not playing with one ball like a tennis ball or even a golf ball, with great respect.
Yeah, no.
You're talking about controlling the direction and the pace and the bounce off cushions of 3 balls in one shot. And I'm telling you, you've got to know what you're doing.
One of the interesting things is obviously a bit of water's gone under the bridge since we made the last tape, but of course I see on the table here this visit that you've got the yellow, red and white, the new billiard balls. Do you find it difficult to cue the yellow? I mean, I'm a little bit old-fashioned.
Not really.
I don't know whether I could really...
I mean, I'll be honest, I think I would sooner stick to the original English 2 whites and a red, a spot and a plain. You know, I mean, it's English billiards. We ought to be keeping what is English, you know. I mean, we're getting almost to pool now. I mean, we've tried big spots and more spots.
Yes, that's right.
And that is off-putting. I mean, you can tolerate this, yes, but on the other hand...
I can't see the point in it personally, but...
well, of course, it's for television. And I mean, you know, television, I mean, I've had, 20-odd years in television commentary and so on. And I know that you have to cater for television, but unfortunately, television, in many respects, is the ruination of the spirit of the game, because everything has to be made and projected for the box so that the audience, the public, can sit down and get some enjoyment from it.
I mean, one of the other problems with regard to the snooker being so powerful is that when I've been to the professional billiard matches with you a few years ago, and you were playing them on the tables they play the snooker championships on. I mean, again, I don't agree with, but they don't have any undercut, and it might be very good for potting, but you lose the lovely long jennies and coming off the cushion entrances with spin and then the nap's another thing, isn't it? I mean, they shave the nap off so that it doesn't have so much effect when they're playing snooker.
Yeah, I think I do agree with you to some extent with the pockets, but I fully agree with you on the cloth. Now, the cloth today, due to the snooker players, and let's face it, when players become champions and they realise that the less nap that you have, you get less problem with various types of shots with using side.
Yes, more than anything.
You get the ball drifting, pushing off and all that sort of thing. And they have asked the authorities to, let's have less nap, because it makes potting easier, which of course it does. And if you want to see the reflection of that, you see the youngsters today. I mean, I've seen plenty of youngsters. They pot like billy-o. I mean, they knock balls in from everywhere. But they're not what you call good snooker players, but they're tremendous potters. And snooker is becoming a potting game. Now, don't misunderstand me, it's always been a potting game. But
yes,
there's a great deal of the subtlety has gone out of it. And I think it's very sad. And of course for billiards, I mean, all the mystique and the skills of billiards are being able to use that to give you a variety of ways of getting one shot.
Yes, this is really where I feel that where snooker was played on a billiard table, I now feel that you're all having to play billiards on a snooker table.
That's
which
right.
Is a shame, but there you are. So, how are you going to go about this top of the table on the tape?
Well, Roger, it's one thing showing people the shots, and you know it's very well, I wouldn't say easy, but it's well within the capabilities of a few good players to show you shots, play shots that they like playing, which they can achieve. But it's another thing telling them how to do it and where they're going wrong. And I can tell you that the general gist of letters and phone calls and queries I've had are to do with technique. And, you know, it's very difficult because I feel personally, I can't speak for other people who coach, but I feel that people are so enthusiastic, young people, they want to get on and they want to play, and if you start talking to them about do this, do that, do the other, and you know, practice, they get a bit bored.
Yes.
They want to get on too quick. You know, they're not so prepared to serve apprenticeships.
No, and everything happens today.
That's
they're
right.
so young, and they.
But the problem is that when they start, they go to in a club or whatever, and they meet somebody who plays a good old game, billiards or snooker, and he does a lot of things that are quite wrong, and they copy. And if they go to the best player and say, well, how do you do this? And they say, that's right, do this, you know, and it might be totally wrong. Now, but they get a certain success. But when they get to a point where they can think for themselves and they suddenly become more ambitious, then they want to do some of the things they've seen the professional do or whatever. And then the habits they've created, it's like trying to give up smoking. You can't break the habits.
No.
And if you start correctly,
then you can build.
You can build on it.
Yes.
And the thing that people tend to do, and I could tell you some very, very good players, I'm talking about top class players, who tend to copy unwittingly what they see another professional whom they admire on the television doing something which is okay for him but not for them. But they tend, by watching, to drift into that little habit, and it isn't for them.
No.
And they're not aware of it. And then if they have that for a few months, and then they think, well, you know, I'm not getting any better, and in a moment of peak, they say, oh, I'm going to go and have a bit of coaching. I've got, you know, something wrong.
Something's wrong.
And, you know, you sort it out for them, and they find it so difficult.
Once you get into bad habits, it's so much more difficult to get into good habits.
So what I want to do, I have found that people have said, well, I don't feel so comfortable at the table. And I've always, through the old timers, that, you know, when you get down in the basic position, there is a little locking of the body. And people do find a problem in finding how to put the pressure on one leg or the other, or sit on the hip, and these little things. And it is so simple, but they add things to it which they shouldn't even think about.
And it's got to be automatic where you start doing things at the top of the
That's
table.
right. You see a good player, you watch a good player, he will step into the shot, and because he's an expert, he steps in and he's down and he's there. Now, it's like everything, you learn to walk before you can run. Now, if you start slowly and you put your feet in the right place, the accepted place, and then you've got 3 or 4 little motions where you do this, that, down, and if you do it correctly, you suddenly find, oh, you're in the right position.
Yes.
Now, if you feel that you might be a freak, you've got one leg much longer than the other, or shorter, you know, everybody's different.
Yeah.
You have to use your common sense and make certain adjustments. Yes. And in the end, you find that the top range of players are all playing to the basic principles, and they're applying themselves near to that as they can get.
Yes. And
that is style.
Yes,
style is nothing to do with technique.
No.
The technique is to be basically correct.
And really,
and deliver the cue.
And really getting to the level we're going to get to on this tape, where you're talking about the sort of things you're going to be intricacies at the top, and it doesn't matter how much knowledge you've got of that, unless you're delivering the cue where on the line or wherever you want to hit the ball, you're wasting your time.
That's right.
So that's when you're going to start off having a little chat about that.
Yeah. And just the one thing, Roger, when you talk about the line of aim to anybody, now the line of aim, and this is where the half ball knowledge is extremely important, because if you take the half ball, that is the only other shot apart from a dead straight pot where you visually can see exactly what to do.
Yes.
I mean, if you put a dead straight pot up, perfect 6-shot into a pocket,
centre to centre,
you can say to a little boy, can you see what to do? Oh, yes,
yes.
That's dead straight.
Yeah.
So he automatically wants to hit it straight. Now, if you move one ball, and now he's got an angle to hit, now he thinks, well, I can't really see because they're not both in line.
That's
He's got to find that line to pop that ball and then play that line, not play the pot.
No.
Because the pot's over there, but the line's over there.
Yeah.
And this is what I just want to go into briefly, and how to stand correctly. And with great respect, and I have to say this, there, in my opinion, this is, and everybody's entitled to their opinion, there are certain aspects of what I've seen creep into snooker players today that I disagree with.
Yeah.
If I can help, I will. But if they want me to help, they have to do what I tell them.
Yes.
Otherwise, they can find it from somebody who perhaps thinks differently.
Well, there's only one little last thing, and that is we're dressed up a bit today, Joe.
Yes, well, when we did the first tape, we said, well, we would call it JK at home. Well, obviously, when you're playing at home, you don't get up in your monkey suit and you relax like anybody else. Now, it just happens that doing this, what we're going to do here, this is only a short piece.
The first piece.
It is, when you see somebody in black and white and you see their image, you will only perhaps see it and concentrate on it at other times when you perhaps watching television in a match, or if you happen to have a local match coming off and they're in the suit and so on. And that is the image you create.
Yes.
And so I thought, well, for this, God bless them.
Yes.
But
we are still at home.
Oh, yes.
Right, I'll start what I've got to do.
Okay.
You start what you've got to do.
Well, now, we'll tackle the first phase of the technique, and that is that when you walk into the shot, you use as much of the room that you're playing in as sensibly possible. and step into the shot, working very hard on the line of aim. So now I will do that, having to turn my back to you, and I walk into the line of aim, and there we are. Now, before I say anything else, I haven't just arrived on my bike, but for your benefit I've tucked my trousers into my socks to give you more clarity with the position of my feet. And you will see now, if I place the cue ball approximately on the pink spot, and that gives me into a fairly average shot there, bridging at the table. So now I look right through the tape, which is the line of aim. I do my little jiggle similar to the golfer, and suddenly I say, that's lovely, that's it. Now when I'm there, I look down, and you'll find that your right foot is standing on the line of aim, and your left foot is parallel to the line of aim, at least the width of your shoulders. It doesn't hurt to go a little wider. The more you can brace yourself, the better when you twist. Now, having done that, you then get down on the shot, and just before you get down, rather, you stick the cue in your tummy, stick it in your belly button, and you will see that your cue, when you're standing perfectly straight, both legs straight, you are looking virtually at the middle pocket. Now, stick the cue in your tum, come round and place the cue parallel to the line of aim in that fashion there. Now, from there, go down, as you go down on your left knee, bring your left arm in and extend your left arm fully, going onto the left knee, keeping the right leg stiff, and you've formed a very solid frame. And there you will see my cue is on the line of aim from tip to butt. Now, I want you to look at that very carefully, because what I'm going to do now is just try and prove a point to you. Now, let us assume I've found the correct position. Now, I'm up. Now, what I'm going to do is, you're focused on my feet, and I'm going to move my left foot to an incorrect position for me, and I'm going to put my foot there, which isn't very much different, but I've taken the width out of my straddle of feet, and I'm going to get down in my normal fashion and play and try and catch an early glimpse of my line of aim there. There. Now, there we are, look. There's my line of aim. And you can see my cue is across the line of aim, but bear in mind that optically I'm looking correctly, but the incorrect placement of my feet has taken me down into my natural position and put the cue across the line of aim. Now, that is quite a big margin. That is a heck of a big margin. What we're talking about is this sort of thing. There, you're addressing the cue ball in the centre there. I've played for convenience, I'll put it there. Now, there you get it. There you don't. You see there, look? See how that's moved off the line? Now, we are talking about perfection. Now, we don't achieve it all the time, I can assure you. But the point is you try to work to perfection. And the more you try, well, the greater your success. So there it is. Now look, I'm going to put my foot back to where I feel happy. There. Now I'm going to go down and I'm going to extend my left arm, just that little turn there which my arm forces my body into, and there we are, look. I lay the tip down. Let's have a look at that. That's not bad, is it? As opposed to that. There you miss it. There you get it. That's what we're talking about. And the more you practice that, the more you will find that you'll begin to point the cue where you're looking, and that is half the battle. Now, if we come up to my body, when I'm in this position before getting down, I've had the cue there, I've turned my body there, keeping my feet perfectly still. Now this is the bit that really tests you. As you extend your left arm to put it on the line of aim, that really forces your body to the right, stick your bottom to the left rather. And as you do that, arch your back, and there we are, look. Bang on the line of aim. Now that is the important thing. Now if you bend your arm, and a lot of players do, they feel they want to get through the shot more, which can mislead them. So they think, well, if I get closer, if I get a little closer in and get closer, and bend my arm, get support on the table, that they can push through. But the point is, when they're tight up close like this, there is no tightness in the body, and this effect can happen. And particularly at snooker, same at billiards, if you're playing a forcing shot, it isn't always exactly the movement, it's the vibration. It's the vibration that will, we're talking about turning that cue such a small amount. And this is what you have to try and avoid. Now, for some people, they can, rather than twist and go really forward, they can actually sit back and sit on their hip, but they tend to have a longer overhang of the cue on the bridge hand. But nevertheless, you can be very solid that way. And there you could see, I'm in a very comfortable position. I'm sitting on my hip. And it can be a very good stance. Now you can use either. And these are the sort of things, if you get used to the basic principles here, and this pushing of the body, sticking your bottom to the left, and forcing yourself down, arching your back, and that really locks you in there. You will find that if you do put your feet in the wrong place, you might be in deep concentration, you might be in a big break. You've forgotten that there's a world around you, and suddenly you get in there and you're so careless that you're down, you're seeing everything beautiful, you get down, and there we are, look, straight away. But you play because you're looking correct. Please believe me, I've been doing it a long time, and don't wait till you get as old as me before you find out. So there we are. I hope that will help you. I'm sure that if you have the patience and you're keen enough to try, that it will bring you some success. So now let's just have a look at what I like to call the straight arm brigade, the three finest players probably that have ever lived and the greatest scorers ever. And here we see John Newman, my mentor in fact, who, look at that beautiful parallel to the bed of the table cue, a straight arm there, straight and rigid as a rock, and what a wonderful player, beautiful top of the table player. And then if we go down a little, there you see, well there you have the benefit of a left-hander and a right-hander. Walter Lindrum, the greatest scoring machine of all time, straight arm, rigid as can be, and Claude Faulkner, probably one of the most beautiful players to watch, a very debonair little man, a most beautiful player. Again, strong, straight arm, really excellent technique. Days to remember. Now the object lesson here, what I want to do is to give you an idea of how to tackle top of the table. I mean, lots of players can play around the spot and they've got a fair idea of what to do, but there are a lot of little tricks and things which take a long, long time to learn. So if I can talk through this without making any mistakes, it perhaps will give you an idea of some of the things you ought to try and adopt. Now firstly, we all know and we all say so often that the game is all in the mind. Well, I'm inclined to agree with 95% of that. So therefore you have to cultivate an attitude whereby you feel confident. Now I'm sure thousands of players would be confident of making 10 points at the top of the table in this situation. That's being on the small side, of course, but now what you have to do is, when you practice this top of the table, don't think in terms of, well, you hope you make 100 or 200 or whatever. Just count to, shall we say, in some cases 25. A better player in 50. Now when you get to 50, throw it out of your mind and start the next score, pick up 2, 3 or whatever it is you do. And then keep a subconscious thing about how many 25s, how many 50s you've made, and you will find that this point in a break where you come a little edgy because you're doing well and you feel, oh, this is as good as I've ever done. So therefore there's a distraction of concentration. So bear that in mind, try and cultivate it. I'll show you what I mean. Now what I'm going to try and do is, I'm going to say we'll play up to 50 and just see how it goes. And it's a little more difficult in this case because I'm going to tell you whether I'm putting side on, which will be to redirect the red, which isn't quite as I would have liked it in terms of perfection. So I improvise. And improvisation, I can assure you, is the secret of playing good top of the table. That is, in lengthy spells. And of course, if you can achieve that, of course your game will literally rocket, and you will find ways of getting to the top of the table and seeing if you can't play your best when the balls are close together and they are in some respects easier to hang. So here we go. Just a hint, a very slight hint of left striking. Very thick on the red. Now, just a very, very gentle soft stun. That gives me a nice straightish line on the red, with just enough room to get through and pop the red and give me the right angle on the two balls around the slot. Now no side, 3/4 ball on the red. That gives me a nice angle on the red again, and again here a very soft stun. Now that gives me a nice angle. If I'm too straight on the red, I'm not really, there's so much I can do here, but I'll play it the way I like to play it. So now I want to lessen this gap between the white and the red. So I'm going to screw back on this red, and I've pinched a touch of right hand side just to increase the angle of the white here, of my white, so that I can get underneath this white and push it nearer the spot. There we are, half an inch. Now when the red is potted with check side, you will see when the red goes on the spot what a valuable shot that is, because there we are, right back where we started. So now again that minute touch of left hand side there. Now this time the white, I've been a bit heavy in the touch. I've knocked the white too far from the spot for what I would call good play. So I'm going to go down the table just a little further than normal, there. You see, I've gone down the table and I've created that nice angle there where I've come to the cushion and return the white near the spot. There we are now again in pot red with a bit of check side. And always play that very smooth. Don't snatch on that shot because check side can be dangerous. Now full on the red with left hand side to steer the red into an angled pot. There. Now you see I've got a tiny angle on the red whereby I can pull it up to the line across the table, the imaginary line, there, and just above the line. You see there, look. Now all I have to do is just pot the red. And again, note the touch. The red doesn't go flying in the pocket. And the great secret of top of the table is touch. They are very, very wise words that I learnt when I was about 8 years of age from Tom Newman. Touch, Jack. That's what he used to say. It's the secret. Well, one of them into the right hand side this time. And you note the white has again gone a little bit away, but not to worry at the moment because I can stun on this pot for another pot just above the line. You see, there's the line, look. Now I can take another pot, because the last one wasn't off the spot, and just roll the red through, there. A good solid contact on the red puts pace into the red with gentle striking of the cue ball. Now I'm going to play no side at all and just drop on the white. Now this time I think it's time I thought about rescuing this white, get it back towards the spot. We're getting that sort of distance. So I'm going to pot the red and come up here. Then I've got back to this angled off the cushion. Now bottom and a bit of right hand side. There. Now you see I've gone nicely up the table. Now in this case, of course, there are times when you have to stretch on the table. If that is too much, don't be silly, take the rest. Play it on the low side, not on the high side. There's the high side, play it on the low side. Now a nice finish red. See that side just come back off the top cushion, and that gives me a nice angled pot there for the red to come back. There we are. And there we are, virtually back where we originally started. So now I'm going to play with right hand side and centre ball striking to the right, not low on the cue ball. That ensures that if I play it too gently, it will have enough turn on the ball, because I haven't dragged it in any way, excuse me, and the freedom of the stroke, of the rolling of the ball, will make sure that I don't stick on that white ball. So now I've got a pot of red, and I wouldn't mind coming up for a pot here. If I go too far, I've got a cannon. Now you see I've got everything on now. I mean, that was a nice little holiday shot. Now I can pot the red gently, go through to here. I can run through the red and skim the white, fetch the red back to there. I could even screw back to here. But everything, you know, again, this is how you're feeling, how happy you're feeling with yourself. And that is exactly what you want to do. There we are now. Again, touch of right hand side. Pull up for a pot. Again, doesn't matter if you go a fraction too far. And that's about perfect. Now again, a gentle pot. Now one more cannon. And I think we should think about rescuing that white towards the spot. So I must leave an angle on the red. So a hint of left-hand side. You see, and that's left me a very nice angle on the red. So all I have to do is strike low on the cue ball and just stun very sweetly down the table, and there is the cannon off the cushion, hint of left-hand side, and you see, you notice there, I played that very carefully because I wanted to tend to knock the object white back a little towards the spot. It was getting a little too far towards this way. So by clipping the white, you find as you progress with your excellence of touch and play that you can actually steer this white ball a little that way or that way by using side off the cushion. Of course, you have to be careful. It is very skillful. Make no mistake. Well, there we are. Now, I don't know how many I've scored, but I'm in perfect position. Pot the red, come up here for a pot, come out here for the cannon, and get the white up to there. So I'm working 3 shots ahead, and there you can see. I better start by doing this one there. There we are. Now I did prophesy what I would do, so just to show there's no mistakes in what I'm saying, there we are. So now I'm in perfect position here to play the shot going underneath there. There's the white come up there. Pop the red. And that's where we came in. Now, lots of players will, when they're playing this top of the table, and I mean fellows that play a nice game of billiards, and if they feel that, well, they can only get so far with this top of the table, and they might set this position up here, purely for practice, and find that they might, on average, get anything from 25 to 50, where they can almost be sure of getting that amount of points from this position without having to go away. But that seems to be when they're really playing well. And they say, well, you know, it takes a good touch and all the rest of it to maintain the position so that you can go on and maybe make 2 or 300s or 400s, whatever you would wish. Now, let me tell you from my own experience that the thing that I think creeps into the play of that sort of player is that he has this mental attitude that he has to keep the balls in that position, and therefore he tries to play too accurately. And by that I mean he tries to maintain a delicate touch on this white, which is good in one sense but can be bad in another. And by that I mean that he is too tight in his play, therefore he's not flowing because he's trying to hang on to the 3-ball control. Now what he should do, you've heard me mention this distance here. Now I set myself personally a task there, when I'm about that distance from the red, anywhere there, with the object white, that I want to start getting into this position where I can come and rescue the white there. Now, this distance, of course, the greater it is, the further you have to knock this ball. So therefore, there's always the fear of you cover the spot or whatever, touching balls, there's all sorts of things. So what you want to do is try and practice this particular shot to learn to send that red and come under there and just drop on that white, enough to do that. Now, the reason I say that is because I think most players, when they play this shot, they tend to go purely for feel of the cue ball. Now, that isn't bad, of course, but let me tell you a little secret that I've discovered myself, which is extremely valuable. That when you've got to whatever you feel is a limit, and you want to make the cannon, if you play from, and you get a nice angle here, when you play the shot, is to play with top at least above centre striking so that you have a good forward rotation of the ball, because that forward rotation tends to give freedom of travel, but at the same time, excuse me, it doesn't restrict the bounce off the cushion, and you find that that ball will travel nicely to there, as opposed to if you strike with dead centre or below centre, trying to keep control, that you will kill the pace off the cushion, off the bounce, and it will die on its way there, and you end up very tight behind the white, just short of it or whatever. So, you know, there is a little tip. And practice, just put that shot out and practice it. And find the various ways. Remember that you can kill the pace of this ball by taking the red thicker. And very often, even with the white there, if you get the right angle on the red, when you say play from the pot here, you pop the red and you come out here somewhere, you can take that red thick, which will allow you freedom of stroke, and by that you will put plenty of pace in the red to knock it to there, and you'll find because you've hit it thick, you take the pace out of the cue ball and it will literally nicely tuck up behind the white. Now, try it, practice it, and once you develop the art of this recovery shot, I'm telling you, that is the basic shot for maintaining longer runs at the top. And don't try and make too many in practice, at least. Don't try and make too many cannons and pots, cannons and pots, cannons and pots. If you feel but you have to play with a wee bit more pace and tend to knock the white there, about there. Rescue it straight away. On the other hand, sometimes it might be there, and because the angle is there from the pot, you might think, well, all I have to do is just pop the red, run through to there, and then you're faced with that shot. So play it. Don't wait for the white to get there. Even if it's there, play it. And it will build your confidence into playing the recovery stroke. Now, that, believe me, I've learned from a lot of experience, that is a very valuable tip. So try it and build confidence into your play. Well, there we are. That's a nice hint for the day. I wish you luck. Well, we'll just have a little run here at the top and see if anything crops up that is interesting in the way things go, whether there's any nice little shots that you need to put in your locker, you know, when you're playing. There's always something crops up, so we'll just see how it goes. It's surprising how often when you're playing the opportunity does occur to get this sort of position, and you don't have to be worried about starting from that position. I mean, this is purely practice which will crop up in your play at some time or other. And of course the one thing that makes this more difficult in some respects when you're practicing is that you have to field for yourself. If you count as well, it all helps to distract from concentration. And of course the time factor in scoring as well. You can't score as quickly, but that isn't always a bad thing. That, of course, is the ideal position when you get that nice angle on the red where all you have to do is pop the red and you automatically leave yourself another simple shot. That's when you can really work hard at gauging the touch and the control of dropping onto the object white just enough to move it without getting a cover. And that's where very often this little touch of side, according to how you approach the object white, whether you want to just turn off it to avoid a cover. See there was a touch of right hand side on that, very slight. Don't forget the pace of the red ball. That will give you an indication of how nicely you're timing and touching the red for pace to the pocket. Now you see I've just gone down the table a little there, just got lower on the cue ball. No extra pace in the shot. See there, the pace was put into the red to bounce off the side cushion, at the same time taking the pace out of the cue ball when it comes up underneath the white. That's something that you want to be aware of, that feel of pace. That looks nice for just coming underneath again, and the white is, the object white there is a nice position, and care with the rest. See now there was a hint of left-hand side on that to get the edge of the object white, to nudge it slightly towards the spot. Not a risky shot if you practice it and get used to playing it. You have to judge the side.